Heidi here from Rain Country Homestead, and today I'm going to show you how I make my own all-natural herbal soaps. So let's get started. So as far as your ingredients, there's only 3 things you need to make soap. Unless you're making it directly from wood ash, then you only need 2. But for this, since I'm not to the point of making lye from wood ash yet, I'm using some powdered lye, crystal lye, and you want to make sure this is pure, filtered rainwater, and coconut oil. Any kind of fat, just lye, water, fat. And I find that coconut oil does tend to make the best soap. Okay, and then you're going to need some other things. You're going to need a scale of some sort. You're going to need some rubber gloves and some goggles, long sleeves. Make sure your skin is all protected. Obviously, you're going to need some measuring cups of some sort, preferably glass or stainless steel or plastic. You're going to need some type of soap molds. I tend to like, even though I have the big brick kind, this is the soap mold I like to use because I can kind of control the shape of the soap a little better. And then for mixing, I'm going to use a glass pitcher, but stainless steel pan or bowl is also very good for that. You're also gonna, you don't have to have one of these, but getting a good stick blender is going to make the process go a lot quicker, and you'll want maybe 1 or 2 different thermometers, and you're going to want to have some vinegar. I keep vinegar in spray bottles around here on hand in case you happen to get lye on you. The vinegar will basically deactivate, that's not the right word, but it'll neutralize, that's the word I'm looking for. It'll neutralize the lye. And that over there is some vinegar, some rose, lavender, pansy vinegar I need to filter at some point today. And then for my soap, I have my own special herbal blend. And these are all of these herbs, every single one of them are grown organically in my own garden, and they all have some sort of skin, you know, some sort of benefit to the skin. And I won't be able to remember without reading my list what all's in here, but just I'll give you a rough overview. There's nasturtium flowers, there's rose petals, sage, marshmallow, lavender, pansies, and just a whole bunch other good skin beneficial herbs. And so I'll be using those in there. All right, now right there I've got my coconut oil all melted and warm on the burner because I haven't started mixing the water and lye yet. I'll do that here in a bit, but I have, for making better than 6 bars of soap, I use 20 ounces of fat, and then I use 3 ounces of lye and 8.5 ounces of water. To get started, for me personally, though I dislike digital things, for this particular process I prefer the digital kitchen scale than my other scale that requires no batteries or electricity, because you want to be as precise as possible on your measurements. So I set my measuring cup on there that I'm going to use, and I turn it on, and it's already calibrated. And then I'm going to pour in my water. I need 8.5 ounces. Oh, right there, exactly 8.5 ounces. Okay, and this is important. Okay, I'm going to bring this up a little bit. You want to put your water into whatever you're going to be mixing in. That goes in first. And now I'm going to set that aside. Then the next thing, and you want good ventilation. I've got a fan going, my ceiling fan, and I've got a door open. Thankfully it's warm enough for that. Okay, and I'm going to put on my rubber gloves, and please don't harp on me about not having long sleeves on. You really should have long sleeves, but it's pretty warm in here right now. Okay, so then I put on another measuring cup. Actually, put that on, calibrate it again, and then I'm going to pour in my lye. Now, as you can see, I have my safety goggles on. I've got my rubber gloves on. I know people are really afraid of working with lye, and I was afraid for a long time too. It's just a matter of being careful, okay? I've got a couple of crystals on my skin still, and it does start to burn, but as long as you have your vinegar handy, it does neutralize it very quickly. Okay, 3 ounces right there. You want to be careful not to get this on anything. Now, I'm going to slowly add this to my water. You don't want to pour it in too quickly. Normally I wouldn't hold this like this, but I'm trying to get it to where you can see. Okay, and then I'm going to set this back over here. And I forgot, I thought I had everything out. I'm going to take my stainless steel. You really don't want to use wooden or even bamboo, because the lye eventually will just eat it up. It'll work, but the lye will eat. It eats through anything organic. Just remember that. As long as you know it eats through anything organic, like your skin, then you can have a pretty good idea of what's safe to use. Just stick with stainless steel and glass. Plastic can be used. I just try to avoid plastic. Now, I don't know if you can tell, but it's sort of clumping at the bottom. That, you know, I just keep stirring, and eventually that's going to all dissolve. And I'll get back to you when that's dissolved. Okay, the lye is now dissolved, but is now as soon as you add lye to water, it's going to heat it up. And I don't know if you can see what this says. It only takes less than a minute to get up to 150 degrees, and that water was room temperature when I put it in there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wait until this gets down to about 125 degrees, and then I'm going to add my fat in there. That will be about the same temperature. Now, while that's cooling down still, I'm going to go ahead and measure out whatever this is. What is this? This is about a half cup. I like to use a lot of herbs in my soaps and shampoos, because I just think there's so much goodness in there that I want to make sure I get as much as possible. And who knows, I may decide to put even more than that, because last time I made it like this, I didn't even measure it. I just kept dumping it in there. But I want to give you at least give you an idea. So I'm going to set that there so it's ready when I'm ready. This still needs to cool down just a little bit longer, and then I'll come back when that's ready to start mixing. All right, now that the fat or the lye water is cooled down to 125, I'm going to add my fat. Just kind of pour it in there gently. You don't want to splash on yourself. And I'm mixing it with my spoon here. Oops, dribbling a little bit on the counter. Now, the way you make soap from wood ash, it's still in a liquid form, and you just add your fat. You always want to add, you add your fat to your lye, and they just kept stirring. That's how they did in the old days. They just kept stirring and stirring and stirring and stirring. It was a very long process. So, but with our modern technology, I mean, if this is what you had, this is what you have, and this is what you'll do. It'll just take a lot longer to do it this way, but it will still work. However, since I have some modern technology and I'm hooked up to my solar power, I'm going to use my stick blender. And I usually try to start on low. So I'm going to mix this some more. This takes several minutes, maybe about 5 minutes tops. It just depends. Sometimes it depends on what fats you use. Some of them will thicken up quicker. But I'm going to come back when I'm ready to add the herbs, and it's to the point where it's at what we call trace. All right, so this is at what we call trace, and it's kind of a light trace, but you can see it's leaving behind. See, I don't know if you can see that. I have a really terrible hold on now. I'm going to set this down. My stick blender is actually overheating. It's the first time I've ever had it do that. Maybe I'm wearing it out. But you can see it's kind of the consistency there. This is a good time to add, if you're going to use essential oils, add your essential oils, your herbs, and so on. So normally I'd use the stick blender for this part, but since it's so heated up, I'm going to try just stirring this in. I'll probably still stick it in there for a little bit. This will at least give me an idea if I want to add more or not, which, like I said, I like lots of herbs, so I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit more. Somebody would probably say, well, that's more than enough, but... And then I'll show you, I've shown it in another video, my this and that video, but I'll show you what the finished product looks like. So I already have some that's been in there curing for about 3 weeks. It's got 1 more week to go. Because you do want, in this particular process, you want your soap to cure for about a month. And the longer you let it cure, the harder the soap gets and the longer it will last when you're using it. So I'm going to go ahead and just blend this up a little bit. Okay, and that's good. That's all I want. Hopefully my blender is not already dying. I haven't had it for that long. Okay, now set that there. All right, this is the consistency I like this at when I'm using these particular molds. And I like to get these very full. First I put it in like that, and then what I do is I get a chopstick, because I found out with the first couple of batches that when it's thick like this, you'll end up having air pockets. So you want to make sure, let me get that chopstick that of course I forgot to have handy. You want to make sure that it's all pressed down in there. So I like to kind of stir it around like this and push it into every corner. Now you can pour it in here when it's a more fluid consistency and get just a nice smooth bar of soap. But I like this because you can make little designs in the top of the soap. Kind of makes it look like something you want to eat. Maybe not so much this one because the color isn't the prettiest. It kind of turns out this light sage green. Well, I don't mind. I love sage green, the color of sage green, but some people might not find that pretty enough to want to eat. Now, you can do this in this particular batch. I'm not using any essential oils, and just the smell of the herbs alone makes it pretty nice. And you can see what I'm doing is I'm trying to even this out a little bit. I'm still gonna add a little bit more to some of these. Some of them are a little high, and as it starts to cool, it'll get thicker yet, and then it will be easier to work with, depending on if you want to do it this way or not. This is just the way I like to do it. A lot of people like to use the big, making the big huge bar, and then you cut it once it's cured, or once it's set for 24 hours. Then you cut it, and then you let it cure for a month. Okay, so now that I've got these a little better than full, because these will be better than 4-ounce bars. That's what I'm shooting for. So I can say they're 4-ounce bars, and then if people buy them, I want to know that they're getting at least 4 ounces or more. I try to be as fair as possible, or I'm not cheating myself, but I'm also giving people a good quality product, and getting as much as they can for their money. So you can do, if you're doing this idea, you can do it like this, where you've got the little peaks. You can just kind of swirl it around. Since pretty much the herbal soap, I'm assuming, is going to be just for our household. I don't know how many people will be interested in it without all the fluffy stuff, smells and stuff in it. Me personally, I think this smells really great, and I know what's in it. I know all these herbs in here are excellent for the skin. I remembered, I think a couple things I didn't mention was calendula and dandelion, and I don't remember if I mentioned the borage. And now that I got my bar soap pretty much the way I want it, I take all this excess and then I make these cute little, using this candy mold that has all different shapes in it. And just whatever excess I have, I just fill these different little things here. And again, I'll come back over with the chopstick. I really should put my gloves back on. I hate wearing the gloves for this process, but this, even in this state, it doesn't really burn. It has a weird effect on your skin. So I've already got some on my hands, so I should probably go rinse this off. But anyway, I'll try to pack these as full as I can. And then, what did I do with my chopstick? No, I already threw it in the sink. Okay. Get some of that off my hands here. Alright, so I like the same thing. I want to stir it around in there to get all the air bubbles out of the bottom. Kind of like same idea as canning. You want, you get those air bubbles in there, and you gotta get them out, especially in these little molds, because they got all these weird shapes in there. So I got some more here. And I just kind of scrape across. A lot of times I find I can get enough to fill another one of these things. And these make good little samples to give to people. Sometimes I like to throw a couple of these into my orders when people are ordering a good amount of stuff. I'll put a few of these in so they can try them out. Or you can sell them for 50 cents a piece. Or just give them as gifts. So I need to stir these around a bit. I also have some rose candy molds that work good that I keep forgetting about. But any kind of silicone candy mold works really good for making these little miniature soaps. And so there's that. So what I'm going to do with these is I'm going to let them sit overnight. And then right here, this is one of the ones, the same kind of soap I made 3 weeks ago. And a couple of the little sample sizes. I got a heart shape and a pyramid. Oh no, it's Illuminati. Anyway, so yeah, there we go. Alright, so you've seen these soaps before in another video, but in case you haven't seen the video, I'll show it to you. So this is the herbal soap that I just made. I mean, it's the one I made 3 weeks ago, but it's the same kind of soap as the one I just made for you. And then this is the orange vanilla calendula I made last week. And then here I've got a grapefruit, vanilla dandelion, rose dandelion calendula, cedar yarrow, black lava salt. This is kind of a fun one for the guys. It's called black lava salt. And then a yarrow from my garden. Orange clove borage, lavender yarrow, key lime pie with golden oregano, and I think I said the grapefruit vanilla dandelion. So any of the herbs that are in here all came from my garden. The rest is either essential oils, or like in the orange clove borage, I added dried organic orange peel and cloves, ground cloves. The key lime pie has lime peel, dried and processed, and then I've got vanilla essential oil and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of fun. However, one of the things I wanted to share with you is you can take just the basic soap, just the fat and the lye and the water, and just have one basic soap, and with that you can make your laundry soap, your homemade laundry soap, and it's all natural. You don't have to worry about any chemicals or whatever in there that don't belong, that you don't want in your clothes, and it's so incredibly inexpensive to do yourself, and it's not hard. And you can also use that same soap, I would actually just use my herbal soap for any of these, but if you don't have the herbs or whatever, no big deal. You can make a real nice hand soap, and 1 bar of soap, any soap, this will make over a gallon of hand soap. So you consider the price. So even if you were to go out and pay $5 for for either homemade soap like this, or a good quality like Dr. Bronner's bar soap, that makes a really good bar soap. You can take that soap and one of those will give you at least a gallon of liquid hand soap, and it makes it go a lot farther. And think how much of a gallon of liquid hand soap costs. It costs way more than $5, but I think it actually makes more than that. So anyway, so there's some tips, a little quick how-to, but I would recommend, before getting started, watch other people's videos too, because I'm sure I probably left something out. I don't always remember to say everything. So please go research it and look into your ratios of fat to lye to water. Those are very, very important, and it's going to depend on the size you want. And read up on the different fats and their qualities, because they all produce a different type of soap. Coconut oil, I think, makes the hardest soap that will last the longest and lathers up the best. Lard will make a good conditioning, very creamy soap, but it doesn't suds up the same way as coconut oil soap does. And the same thing with your olive oil, your avocado oil, your any grapeseed oil. You can use any fat, you really can. You just want to read up and see, okay, what do I want it to be vegan and kosher, or do I want it to be real bubbly? Do I want it to be creamy? There are places you can go. In fact, I will try to remember to post a link to a page that describes all the different fats and their qualities that they have in the soap in the description box below, and the links to the products, the coconut oil I use, and that kind of stuff. So all right, so I hope you enjoyed the video and you learned something, and take care and God bless.